Gold and silver still look like they want to go a lot higher. Obviously, breaking through this resistance on silver was important. I think shorts, if they are what many people think that are out there, they got a huge problem. And we could see that ultimate squeeze that a lot of people have felt all along.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for July 14th through July 21st, 2025, while supplies last. This week, we'll swap any silver bars you have into junk silver at just a 2% fee. That's right, any silver bars or rounds that you have. We'll buy back at 2% under spot and swap into junk silver at spot with the proceeds. It's a quick and easy way to move from large quantities of bullion into junk silver at the lowest cost in years. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-815-4237. That's 1-888-81-LIBERTY. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is our good friend Peter Grandich from Peter Grandich and Company. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Always an honor and a privilege. Thank you, Elijah.
Well, it's great to have you today. I did want to discuss the metals markets, what we're seeing in the trade wars right now going on as we speak, as well as the suggestion that Trump might fire Powell. It seems like Trump has pushed back against that, saying, that's not a serious consideration at the moment. But your take on that, it seems like Powell and him have not been seeing eye to eye for quite a while. If that was to happen, how would that rock the markets?
First of all, it was kind of unusual. And yesterday, Trump is interviewed and complaining about he was a lousy appointment. He seemed to forget that he's the person who appointed him originally in 2000 in his first term. He might have meant that it was a lousy reappointment because that's what Biden ended up doing. But he wouldn't be there if it wasn't originally for what Trump did. I really think the story that first ran yesterday that the White House said Trump was preparing to fire him was some sort of trial balloon. Because as soon as they said it, the stock market just caved a couple hundred points. And Trump is everything about the stock market. The stock market is his good housekeeping seal. It's his belief of signaling that he's doing everything right and the economy's moving in the right direction. And of course, the don't worry, be happy crowd that makes up most of Wall Street loves that type of stuff. And then as soon as they saw it was, they pulled back. And then they kind of didn't pull all the way back and said, well, there are some things that's being done. He's being investigated and all. My advice to him, quite frankly, is with the term really, May 2026, a little, maybe 10 months away, he's your person to point to if things don't work out the way you think it's going to be. Let him stay if he's going to stay. Now, I don't think Powell's just my personal opinion. I don't think he's the makeup of a guy that's going to resign just because of all of this. First of all, it's clear and obvious from a few years ago, he's not a fan of Trump. That is clear and evident. And even though they're not supposed to be political or be viewed as political, it looked like he was trying to help Biden in those run up to that election until, of course, Biden dropped out and all that transpired and all. But realistically, if you think about it today, Elijah, just on the economic news today, CPI and PI, CPI ticked up some, PPI ticked down. Retail sales are up. New claims for unemployment are down. This stock market at record highs, near record high at record highs. Crypto at record highs. Gold at not too far from it. I don't think the Federal Reserve by book should be worrying about cutting interest rates dramatically. Certainly not before September. And things can change in a couple months and all. So this whole thing about Powell, I think, has run its course. I don't think, A, he's going to fire him. B, I don't think he's going to resign. Now, if the stock market starts to tank and Trump starts to be pointed as the blame, his ego and arrogance will get the best of him, and he could go back to it, demanding and actually firing him at that point in time. So that's where I think it sits. It showed also, I think what was missed out by people is how gold reacted to just the thought. I mean, it shot up $50 in 5 or 10 minutes. And that also, I think, was a signal to him and the world that might be a big mistake if he does it.
Now, I did want to get into precious metals. Your take on, gold's action in the last month or so. It seems like it's stayed pretty steady. And interestingly enough, I mean, last time we had you on, you were talking about how, you're feeling better about silver than you have in the past. And, since then we've seen silver touch 39, pull back a little bit, still above 38 as we speak. Your take on where gold and silver are right now?
Well, you put it in a nice way, because I used to simply say that silver was like kissing your sister. But when it broke under 30 earlier this year, and then I look at the tremendous, clearly minimum short position, whether it's manipulated short or just people who don't believe it's going higher than that, and the industrial use, and then the ratio got so out of whack with gold that I became a silver bug. And I said, quite frankly, it could lead gold for a while. So I still see them as, close in terms of favorability. There's no dramatic difference as I used to see, always putting gold ahead of silver. I think silver will not be able to rally a lot without gold going up, and that could cause it to drag up. I do think gold has traded just admirably. Now, remember when it got near 3,500, I said I actually took profits in it because I thought it ran far, and it got something that almost always is a surefire signal. The percentage above its 200-day moving average was at a record high. And I felt that suggested that it's going to either take time for the at average to catch up, or gold was going to have to go down a lot, maybe as far as 3,000, because the 200-day moving average at time was 2,700 and change. It's now over 3,000, that 200-day moving average. And in a couple more weeks, it'll move up even faster, because some of the higher prices of gold will impact that average now. So I'm okay if we go through, and I know traders don't want to hear this, but if we went through Labor Day and we were still talking about gold on either side of 3,300, I'm fine, because if you're a 4,000 or 5,000 or even higher believer, the longer we consolidate here and that averages and overboughtness get worked out and things of that nature, the better foundation it will be to get to those numbers. So I would say that I'm well content about the gold price. Obviously, breaking through this resistance on silver was important. I thought it had another great day today. It was dragged down earlier this morning with some significant gold selling, popped right back up. I think shorts, if they are what many people think that are out there, they got a huge problem. They won't be able to wait too much longer, and it may take a psychological number being broken, which would be 40. It's just a round number, but it would be psychological. And we could see that ultimate squeeze that a lot of people have felt all along. But constructively, gold and silver still look like they want to go a lot higher. And there doesn't seem to be any real concerns of major downside other than, 5 to 10%, pullbacks.
And I know you've said and talked about that the institutional investors, it seems like big money is moving into precious metals, but they're also, it seems like, selling stocks. I mean, your perspective on this, it seems like mass exodus of the people in the know from the stock market.
Well, I don't always know if institutions are called smart money, because several Nobel laureates did studies over the last couple of decades and found that 80% of active money managers underperform the simple performance of the S&P 500. So we may give too much credit to the average institutional person, but you are right that institutionals are significant major net sellers of general equities, and now corporate insiders as well. And it's the general public that is reaching levels not seen in years, if not ever, on how much its own ownership of stocks. And of course, the lower echelon of stocks, lower price, are moving and, doubling and tripling in a matter of weeks. And historically, that has always happened at the end of a bull run and all. So it is concerning, and it's interesting that normally you would have expected, with the stock market remaining strong, that gold would not be able to hold the huge gains that it made. I think that's another credit you just got to give the gold that in all of this, it's hanging here. And I think it's hanging here because it realizes chances are that's not going to last in the stocks. And eventually a serious correction, if not a bear market, will entail. And as long as it's not a collapse, because remember, in a collapse, people think of liquidity. They're not talking the stories about gold and BRICS or anything. I need to sell something in order to get my house in order. And, gold could be sold then. But other than that, the stock market peaking and rolling over will be just another bullish factor for gold.
And you mentioned how, gold is still your favorite and has been for a while. What about platinum? Some people see it as kind of a more risky play, but as we're speaking again, platinum is making a dramatic move almost to 1,500. We haven't seen these kinds of prices for over a decade. So do you anticipate platinum to continue to rise here?
So for a lot of years, especially when I was a fund manager, platinum always traded at a premium of gold. That's why it was a platinum card was better than a gold card. Amex. Now, of course, from that respect, that changed. I don't look at platinum like I once did 20 or so years ago, so I wouldn't be a good expert on it, other than I think what people realized is it got so cheap compared to gold and palladium. When silver shot up that day on its record day up, palladium actually went up more percentage that day than even silver. So I think they're making up for a loss, but I don't follow it well enough. It was always a metal that really was only come out of 2 or 3 places. Many of most of those places people were concerned about, especially now from South Africa and of course Russia. There may be some concern about supply demand. I don't know. The big driver that used to be was the Cadillac converters in cars. I'm not a good person, Elijah, to say other than I think that it's just part of the whole metals complex moving higher.
And now on geopolitics, we're seeing new tariffs being announced by President Trump. Your perspective on this ongoing trade war here?
Well, this is where I get a lot of the MAGA people angry. I'm not a MAGA person, but I'm not a Trump hater either. I live with a Trump lover. If he comes on, she'll run in and watch him on TV and not even think about what she was speaking to me, my wife. But I do think he's made a serious misjudgment. And first of all, he's done some really good things. The immigration thing, another 4 years of how it was, the country would have been totally ruined. Not that it's not going to be eventually, but he at least curtailed that end. He's brought some sanity back to things. He's taking money away from places that were extremely biased, like, this NPR stuff and all. But on the trade war, my comment is simple. He brought a big stick to it when he should have brought an olive branch. America is not the power that it was 30 or 40 or 50 years ago. And you can say all you want about make America great again and all, but it's not the country it was. It's not received in the manner that it was 30 or 40 years ago. The BRICS would have never gotten off the ground and continue to grow if it was where everybody wanted to deal with it and all. China is an extremely formidable opponent. I put out a video a couple of nights ago just demonstrating why I think that's true. And so I think he made an error. Now, he still has the momentum from his election and the group and stock market. The don't worry, be happy crowd that make up much of the financial service industry. I like to joke that you can throw them off the Empire State Building all the way down. They'll all say, hey, so far, so good. They'll like anybody and anything that makes the stock market go up. So they're all for, and supporting this stuff and all. But I will tell you this. I think it's going to come back to bite America in a very big way. And one of the things that's showing up now is, and he's given this name of taco and, that Trump, says one thing and then he switches. I don't think he has that much more time until he gets to the point of, hey, they didn't come running to our feet. Elijah, I would just tell your viewers, just go and watch what he was saying weeks before his coronation and then during the coronation and inauguration and up to April 2nd, what he predicted that the world was going to do. They haven't done it. They haven't come running to make deals. In fact, there's nothing of major significance as we approach already now past the middle of July. I think what will transpire is he will take a lot off settle on a much lower number and still say that's really good for us. We know we're the greatest country, and all this other type of stuff and all, because he cannot point to anything at this point in time. And it's been pushed. Remember, it was going to be July, and now it's August. And who knows, come August 1st, they'll push it again and say, well, we're going to give you to X, Y, Z. But I think it's a net negative long term. And the positives from it and the spin that they're getting out of it is going to deteriorate. And one of the ways it's going to deteriorate is he's losing some support from other issues. The Powell issue, one much bigger than that is the Epstein issue. There are a lot of people who are major supporters, including that woman that sits in that other room, who were hoping that this Epstein thing was going to come to the forefront, which it seemed like him and his group said was going to transpire. Dan Bongiorno, who was probably the most aggressive guy in the media about Epstein, joins the FBI. Everybody assumes it's all going to hit the fan. And we all know what's transpired. I think he's losing some of the political chips. And here's why I believe that's important. Our election now, a few months away from November, as soon as this election is over, they'll focus everything on the congressional election in November 2026. And guys that were Republicans or supporters of MAGA who might have stood right next to him may not stand as close or even stand there at all. So his time is running short to really prove that this is the formula and the way to go. Talk is going to get cheap eventually, and eventually that'll show up in the stock market as well.
Now, you mentioned how Trump has underestimated a lot of these countries. For example, China, you mentioned it being a more formidable opponent, right, of the U.S. And I think a lot of people in the mainstream media have been just ignoring what is happening with the BRICS, and how they're continue to expand and are going to have the majority of the U.S. population under them. So your take on this, how it seems like maybe there's this, you could say, ignorance or this lack of, people aren't paying attention, even the president of the U.S., to the power of these other nations that are banding together.
It's probably the most misunderstood what is transpiring. I say this often and I'll say it again. I think one of the happiest people in the world right now, who's ever the director of new membership for the BRICS, because everything that's playing out in their arguments why you should join the BRICS since Trump has taken presidency points more and more. Yeah, they weren't household names that joined, but we saw several more countries join. We also, I talked with Andy Schectman of Miles Franklin today. He brought up so many excellent points on what's developing behind the scenes, and China can wait out Trump, and meanwhile it's maneuvering and doing certain things. And I think it's going to come back to bite them. And again, remember, the formation of the BRICS, believing why these central banks were acquiring so much gold, and by the way, they're continuing nonstop, was the reason why I got out of stocks and bonds and bought gold for capital appreciation, and that worked out fine. I just think, I tell this story. It wasn't too long ago, a couple months ago, when I was asked to speak to a brokerage group that my friend owns, and I think every financial advisor in that room was under 40 years old, and I'm sitting at the table, and they don't know yet that I'm the speaker, and my friend is about to introduce the speaker, and he says, our next speaker is also going to talk about the BRICS. And one of the financial advisors next to me leaned over to the other guy, is he going to talk about the housing industry? I mean, I don't think everybody's that way, but I don't think there's a lot of knowledge in the financial service industry understanding what the BRICS are and what impacts it's going to have, not just geopolitically, but economically. And therefore, again, I'm a big believer in, I think they've had another great year. They're smart enough not to get into a war of words. You cannot beat Trump in a war of words. The guy doesn't care what you say, who says it. He's going to say, he's going to be as he can get very nasty, quite frankly, at times. And if you turn on him or don't longer support him, I mean, that's it. And of course, he said he's going to break the kneecaps and all this other stuff, but they're moving forward. And I think again, that's another one of the many bullish reasons for the gold market to work its way higher.
if we do see the BRICS continue to grow in power, how does this change, I guess, the world we're living in? It obviously changes the dollar if the U.S. has less and less influence going forward.
Well, I think the main reason the countries haven't run as he expected them to, and if you remember, look at all the reports that ran. The secretary said big deals are coming a couple of days, next week, and so forth and so on. Is they realize that, and they feel they can wait him out. But what's covered him so far is there hasn't been the economic damage that would be, people would see, and of course that's why I think he reversed on, because he cannot afford the stock market going down, in any, substantial manner. And he's made that as good housekeeping seal. And again, I'll just point to it. The dollar was extremely oversold. It's going through a counter trend rally, which I talked about a week or two ago to my followers that expect that. But it had its worst 6 months ever in the first half of this year. And even in the face of this counter trend rally, gold more than holds its own. So I just think that he has 30 to 60 days more. But if we get into September and he still can't point to one of the top 3 or 5 countries in the world of a substantial inked trade deal. One of the things that I heard I thought was very interesting from an advisor to the Middle East, Saudis and all, he was just over there and they were the best of friends, said, who knows, Ian, if you make a deal with Trump, is it going to be a deal tomorrow? And so I think, like I said, he's losing his punch and his effectiveness. And I know there's a hardcore. I live with one. But the bottom line is I think more and more people are going to concern. And these outside incidents, the Epstein, the Powell, some other things that may come up here and all, even his own health. I'm not rooting for it to be bad. We had today, a report about some blood things in his legs and all. And there's already people speculating, it's probably worse. They just don't want to tell us. These are the type of things. We just saw polls come out that the support for him now is back to the levels that it was on Liberation Day. Like I said, I think if the stock market suddenly starts to correct hard, that could be the final blow to the Trump so-called initiative. And then he's got an issue because he doesn't have 3 more years. He has between that period and the November 2026 election. And if either house flips, the Senate, or then it's just going to be, nothing get accomplished until the 2028 elections.
And every time we have you on, we really like to bring in the religious aspect of this, because you and I are both Catholic and believe that God has a role to play in our lives as well. So we really need to, whenever we're looking at our financial lives and what's happening in the world, we need to really understand this in a bigger picture. So how do you interpret all this in a religious, from a religious perspective?
Well, the Bible is the foundation and the blueprint to life. It's the foundation to my financial planning arm that, the group that I'm a part of. I believe God is not sitting up in heaven going, what? I didn't know that. He's allowed this to occur. There's great debates among Catholics and Protestants on, is this end times and all. And my argument always back to that is simple. It says in Scripture, not even Jesus knows the hour or the day. Well, if his own son doesn't know it, why should I spend any time trying to figure out, is this it or not? But a great friend who was a Catholic lay of Atlantis, the best friend I had that passed away a few years ago, it's the deepest, saddest thing that ever happened in my life, always told me, he says, even if it's all not true, it's still a better way to live. And so what I try to do each day, I try to do it almost every morning on my X page and all, is to remind myself and my clients and followers that there is a God. There is someone of a creator sitting not just side by side, just sending lightning bolts when we do something wrong or anything of that nature. If it wasn't for his love and mercy, I used to say this, Elijah, if you don't mind me taking a minute about this. I used to say to people, do you want God to be fair? And they go, yeah, I want him to be fair. I said, you don't want him to be fair. If he was ever fair, we're all doomed. Thank God he's merciful. And he forgiveness. Even in his last moments, in his last breaths, going through the worst way of being killed that mankind has ever created, he turned to his father and said, "Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing." I mean, if that ain't mercy, I don't know what mercy is. And thank God for mercy. I mean, I know it for myself. I know that finance, and if I can also add this, finance is throughout Scripture. It's an amazing thing. There's more topics related to our finances and how we live financially and money and things of that nature than there is even about heaven or hell, which you'd think would be the two biggest topics in that book. So I would suggest to people half the parables are about things related to it. Whether you're Catholic, Christian or not, whether you believe it's the Word of God or just a good book that somehow lasted for a couple thousand years, looking at it and finding out it's things about finance. Again, there's not a positive verse about debt. And if we trace all our financial problems in the world from a country to ourselves, it's too much debt. And here was a book that was written a couple thousand years ago that said, if you get involved in it, it's going to cause you nothing but heartache and all. So scripturally, I can tell you it's one of the main reasons why I love speaking to you, because you give me this opportunity that 99% of other financial shows or whatever they may be called are just not gonna. But I do believe that I am only here today, gone through terrible losses, terrible depressions, lost wills to live, all the things that occurred. So I could be here today to say this to you, and one or more persons that's going to watch this is going to be influenced in a positive way and see a life-changing experience. And you, my friend, deserve the credit for that, for allowing someone on your show to speak in that manner. Yes, there'll be people riot. I get it, all the things. You know, you're either accused that you're just doing this to make money, all the other things that people say. But thank you, praise you, and blessings to you and your family and your business, young man. I can't tell you what joy I just had in the last 4 or 5 minutes, much more than what we spoke about earlier.
Well, we really appreciate your time as always, Peter, and you sharing with us your insights on faith and finances. So we really appreciate that. Any last thoughts before I let you go, and where can people find you online?
Well, mostly the best way is my X page, because anything I do in my blog or a video like this will be put on the X page. But there is petergrandich.com, where the business part of the planning business for U.S. residents. Then, of course, there's a YouTube channel where I put up interviews, and I even get to interview you every once in a while.
Fantastic. Well, I always appreciate that as well. Thank you so much, Peter, and you have a good day, and God bless.
God bless you, my friend.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for July 14th through July 21st, 2025, while supplies last. This week, we'll swap any silver bars you have into junk silver at just a 2% fee. That's right, any silver bars or rounds that you have. We'll buy back at 2% under spot and swap into junk silver at spot with the proceeds. It's a quick and easy way to move from large quantities of bullion into junk silver at the lowest cost in years. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-815-4237. That's 1-888-81-LIBERTY. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.